Always an honor to have Dr. Oz on your morning show. Oz, good morning.
Good morning, my friends. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is a side note. I know we have a lot to talk about, but I am an idiot, and I saw you on Salt Bae's Instagram like a week ago, and forgot that English isn't your first language.
I'm Turkish. My parents came over, immigrated, and but I tell you, I've spent my whole adult life here. I go back to Turkey a couple of times a year, visit my mom, and I just lost my dad this year. But it's
sorry to hear that.
It's a wonderful language. Well, my dad was 93. He lived a full life. He did everything he ever wanted to do.
Wow.
That was just amazing. I was literally watching, I'm like, Salt Bae is alive. I should watch. I'm like, hey, that's like Dr. Oz. I'm like, oh my God, he's really smart. He speaks more than one language. Anyway,
that's so cool.
I'm fangirling right now.
Oz, we'd love to get to. One thing I want to get to right away. So Hoodie in our show, who does a lot of behind the scenes work, he had a question for you because his dad is moving in the next week or so, and he wanted to know, is it safe for him to help his dad move? Obviously, we've all been in quarantine and lockdown, but is it safe to help a family member move during times like this?
It depends if his dad has risk factors that would make a COVID-19 infection catastrophic. And if we look at the data around the country, probably 95% of people who get admitted to hospitals have a risk factor for either diabetes, high blood pressure, elevated body weight, their lungs aren't good, something that makes it a little more likely they would have a bad complication from the virus. So people who don't have those risk factors, they can move, and because if you're wrong, and hopefully you're not, but if you're wrong and someone that you're not socially distancing with perfectly infects you, you'll still be okay.
Sure. It makes perfect sense. All right. Rose, you had a question about the heat a little bit.
Yeah, so I know you've talked about this before, both with us and on your show, but there's been a lot of back and forth that I've seen on social media recently about whether or not heat and humidity will either slow the spread or even kill COVID-19.
There was an interesting study from Yale that looked at this, and it was brought up by some members of the task force as well. And it looks like humidity hinders the ability of the virus a little bit. I don't know if it's because the virus swells a little bit and doesn't travel as far, or because you're further away from people when it's hot and humid, but it does seem to reduce the contagiousness. And historically, looking at viruses, and how they behave in the winter versus the summer, that seems to be a trend. Not always. There's some viruses that are exceptions. But I'm hopeful, and I think for good reason, a lot of scientists are hopeful that we'll have less of this virus in the summer. Now, that doesn't mean it'll come back in the winter. In fact, that's probably what's going to happen. So we have to be especially prepared when that happens.
So you mentioned it might come back in the winter, Oz. Do you think there's a chance there might be a vaccine by then, or will we at least have a better understanding of the virus by winter?
We're not going to have a vaccine by the winter, but
okay.
Vaccines take years, and even if we fast-track this one, we're still a year away. However, there's some treatments there are probably dozens of treatments that could work against this virus to help people who are, again, not the folks who don't have an issue with it, because a lot of people get this infection and do just fine with it, and they shouldn't be overtreated. But for people who are higher risk or having trouble, the medications being developed might be helpful. None of them have been proven to be effective in double-blind randomized controlled studies. There are some that are we think in this country, by the way. There are studies in other countries that have been done, but nothing in this country. And so we're all waiting, believe me, anxiously waiting for the right answer.
Well, I know, Riley, you had a question, too, about states reopening, right?
Yeah, a lot of states are easing their social distancing guidelines, but I was wondering if you had any guidelines or health precautions that you think we should impose on ourselves, because obviously there's the option to run out there in certain states to the beach, but should we, or there still be other things that we should be doing to keep ourselves healthy?
Well, I think the way we're thinking about the states opening is like a light switch, right? You flip it and all of a sudden everything's open, and that's not really what's going on. It's more of a dimmer that you gently turn the lights on. And if you do it that way, so you can assess the most effective approaches and figure out real-world guidelines on social distancing and keeping the vulnerable people safe, like we spoke about earlier. These actually would allow most Americans to feel comfortable. Here's the big truth. If you open the state up but no one comes, then you're not open, right? So beaches. I mean, in Florida, the governor said, well, listen, you don't have to go to the beach, and we don't want people getting infected, so we've moved the option of sitting on the beach. But why would we not let people walk on the beach? It's like walking in parks. In other states, if they let you walk in a park, it's equivalent to walking on the beach. And I understand where he's coming from. It makes sense. We have to be thoughtful about it. I mean, you don't want people having keg parties on the beach or at national parks. I think those maneuvers could risk rapid spread of the virus, and we're not there yet. Numbers are finally trending in our favor, and in many parts of the country. We just want to keep it there for another month.
Oz, we appreciate the time as always. We know you're a very busy man. You got a lot going on. Obviously,
thank you.
The TV show as well. What's on the show today?
We've been talking a lot about people who managed their COVID-19 quarantine effectively. So what do you cook? What do you make? How do you actually start, preparing yourself to be able to get out of the house and go back and engage life again? It's that transition that we're focusing on. So we're doing some miracles. People survived in unbelievable circumstances, and some fairly straightforward things like how do you make beans into food that because you can't go shopping today.
Awesome. Oz, we appreciate you as always. Check your local listings for the television show. We'll talk to you next week, my friend. Stay safe.
Take care. Stay well. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you, Oz. We'll have the full interview up, by the way, ymsradio.com. Dr. Oz, always a pleasure. It's your morning show with John and Riley and Rose.